behind the scoreboard as part of our salute to Jackie Robinson and his courageous breaking of the flag in April 1947, painted for a very lifelike detail. Artist Brian Birrer looked.
I appreciate you guys coming. I know some of you come from a fair distance. And we're going to talk about the statue and really how I make these statues and some of the little adventures I've had along the way, how I got started and so forth. I'll try to keep it fairly short, hopefully 40, 50 minutes. Before I start talking about the statue itself, I want to honor the story of Jackie Robinson. When you spend 800 or 900 hours doing a statue of one figure, you do a lot of research, you read books, you look at films and different things, and what I came across was everybody knows the basic story of Robinson. He broke in April 15, 1947 with the Dodgers. He then, once he plays, the major leagues are open to African Americans, and things move forward. And everyone knows the basic story. I know there's a movie out now. But in my research, I came across several facts that I feel maybe get cut out of the story, or people don't typically know, or things that surprise me that I think are noteworthy. For instance, who is this fellow up on the screen? Does anybody know? Wow, I didn't think anyone would know. This is Moses Fleetwood Walker. You're exactly right. He was, along with two other fellows, I believe his brother and another fellow, the first man of African descent to play professional baseball in the United States in a major league. And do you know the year? 1884. Wow, this guy's good. I think 1883 or 1884. I honestly don't know. So, when I read the story, I thought, wow, I always thought Jackie was the first. He was not the first. These fellows were the first. So what happened? What happened was, the legend is this fellow did it all by himself, but they've researched it and they determined that maybe it was him and a lot of other people. He seems to represent the common feeling of the time. This is Cap Anson. He's a Hall of Famer. He's the first guy with 3,000 hits. I'm going to check all my facts. And he's got a plaque up in Cooperstown, and we honor him. But it's pretty well documented that he was a pretty good racist, and he refused, I believe, to take the field with the Walker brothers. And if he didn't do it single-handedly, he had a lot of influence because he was a good player at the time. So he represents basically the feeling of the times that was prevalent. And it stuck. The Walkers were banished, and from 1883 to 1947, there was no blacks in baseball. But if you want to talk about institutionalized racism in the major leagues, you have to start with this guy, the first commissioner. We all know the story of the 1919 White Sox. Baseball owners were frightened. The public wasn't going to buy tickets because the games were fixed. Gamblers were rigging the games. They sold the 1919 World Series. We all know that story. The owners hired this man and brought him in and said, clean up our game, give us a better reputation. And he didn't want the job unless he had sweeping powers, and they gave him sweeping powers. And one of the things he did with them was keep the job for life and keep blacks out of the game. It's pretty well documented that in 1941, this man, Bill Beck, who was an owner of several teams in the big leagues along the way, wanted to buy the Philadelphia Phillies. This is 1941. This is 6 years before Robinson breaks the color line. He wants to buy the Phillies and cherry pick the Negro Leagues with all the best players. Landis gets word of that, and behind the scenes, he puts the kibosh on it. Beck doesn't buy the Phillies. It never happens. As soon as Judge Landis died in 1944 and was no longer commissioner, this man here on the left, Branch Rickey, called up the current commissioner, the new commissioner, Happy Chandler. He said, Happy, I want to sign a black player. You got a problem with that? Happy said, no, go ahead. And instantly he put his plan into motion. Pick the right man, groom him, get him through the minor leagues, and get him up to the Dodgers. So between Landis dying in 44 and Robinson breaking in 47, there's your timeline. I like when they tell the Robinson story, I like it when they include Branch Rickey and when they include people like Bill Beck. Because a lot of times the story gets brought down to just jockey against the world. Now obviously Branch Rickey didn't have people hurling insults at him. He didn't have to eat in the bus because he couldn't eat in the restaurant. He didn't have to sleep in someone's house because he couldn't sleep in the hotel. Obviously. But Branch Rickey took real risks. He risked his business, his reputation. Financially, he took risks to make the thing happen. So it's not Jackie against the world. It's a group of people trying to make the thing happen. And some of those people happen to be white. And I think it's a more inclusive story when you don't prop these people out of the picture. Now, I understand a lot of times just for brevity, you tell the basic story. But for the complete story, you should include these other folks because they worked at it and they got the job done. This is a big guy. If you're from New Jersey, this is a big New Jersey guy. I drove past Larry Doby Field on Route 20 on the way down here. Larry Doby is the second black to play in the major leagues. He integrated the American League only a couple of months after Robinson. He played for Bill Beck. There he is again, for the Cleveland Indians. He's the first black man to hit a home run in the World Series. They hit a home run in the All-Star game. He and Satchel Paige are the first black players to win the World Series. Robinson and Doby break in 47. The Indians win the World Series in 48. This guy gets a World Series ring in his second year. He was a pioneer. I'm sure he put up with just as much nonsense as Jackie did. But we always remember the first guy. We remember Neil Armstrong. We don't really remember the second guy. Who's the second guy? Buzz Aldrin? Another personal note, my uncle played football against Doby. He played for the Patterson Ghosts in high school in the 30s. I believe he was also an executive for the New Jersey Nets. He played for the Newark Eagles. Tremendous New Jersey guy. And I believe he's friends with Yogi and has been to the museum.
Do you know that Buzz Aldrin's from Montclair?
You know what? I did know that. And isn't Wally Schirra also from New Jersey?
I know.
Buzz Aldrin, yeah. I did know that. Not to take anything away from Buzz. And this fella here, do people realize who this is? This guy would have been the statue you're looking at right here. He was supposed to be the first one, but Branch Rickey, when he was evaluating how to get it done, decided that Robinson was a better candidate to be the first because he had been to college, UCLA, and he had been an Army officer in the United States Army, not just an enlisted man, he had been an officer. So he felt, we need a guy with a really strong resume. Monty Irvin's still alive, he's 94. I was just down in Philadelphia doing an event with this statue. I was talking to one of the last surviving members of the Philadelphia Stars, the Negro League team from Philly, Marlon Duckett. He signed a ball for my son, actually, nice guy, and he is in regular contact with Monty Irvin. Monty Irvin does a lot of work for the surviving Negro Leaguers, trying to get them some pension money, trying to get them some medical money for procedures and whatnot. He would have been a great first guy. It would have been fine, but it just, fickle finger of fate landed on Robinson and not on Monty Irvin. Monty Irvin was on the 51 Giants, the Giants who won the pennant. But the Yankees won the World Series that year, as you can see up there. And since we're talking about themes that don't get enough coverage, in my opinion, since we're at the Yogi Berra Museum, I included this slide. I know a lot about baseball, I read a lot of books, and to me, the two Yankees who are the most important and who don't get enough coverage are Yogi Berra and the fellow on the left, Allie Reynolds. Allie Reynolds has to be the most important Yankee that most fans have never heard of. From 47 to 53, they won, what, 6 out of 7 world championships? A tremendous player. Doesn't get enough credit. And I know Yogi and Jackie Robinson had a very good relationship. I know when Yogi retired, when Jackie retired, Yogi made a point of going over to the locker room and talking to him. And they were definitely friends. And they broke in the same year, I think, 47. So those are my oddball things that I picked up along the way studying the statue. Let's talk about the actual statue. Everything you see here is wood. Everything. The brim of the hat, the shoelaces, the belt buckle. It's all carved out of wood. Many, many pieces of wood that are glued together. Here it is in the slide before it's painted. I've had people stand right in front of it and ask me, how did you get the uniform on? I've had that question once. I've had it dozens of times. And I make a knock on it and they're surprised. And that's a flattering thing. That's a compliment. That means I did my job and I made wood look real or look like something else. How did it all start? What would possess a guy to start doing this, okay? That's a frequently asked question. 1989, my father got Dremel tool. It's a little die grinder. It fits in your hand. You put different bits in it, and they spin, and you can carve wood. He never touched it. We got it for him because he did bonsai trees. He was in Japan in World War II, and he learned about bonsai, which is where you miniaturize these trees. And the idea was if you have dead limbs like you do in here, you use the tool to shape the limbs and get them just exactly right. I don't think he ever touched it. I picked it up, and I picked up a piece of wood, and I actually brought it in, and I made this, a buffalo nickel, just a simple piece of wood, drew it on, did a little relief carving. I'm going to pass it around if you guys want to look at it. I didn't know I could do it. I didn't know what the tool could do. I was just having a good time. So I got sucked in. I enjoyed it. Not only did I enjoy what John's holding in his hands, but I enjoyed the process, sitting there with my cup of coffee and the game on, and time goes away, and you just get focused on what you're doing. I liked it. So I did a lot of duck decoys and knickknacks, and somehow I got it in my head, I'm going to do a life-size figure. I don't know where that thought came from. I wish I remembered. I was going to do a cigar store Indian, but then I said, you know what, that's a cliche. I like baseball. Let me do a baseball player. Who's the best? Babe Ruth is the best. I'll do Babe Ruth. So I set out on doing Babe Ruth with just an idea in my head. I'm going to do a life-size thing. And all I've really done is that, which isn't much. And you're in there. Oh yeah, no, I got you in there. I started out literally, I hacked shoes out and attached them to the base out of this wood right here. This is before the internet, before digital cameras. This is the early 90s, so that's a terrible print. But this was delivered to our house for firewood, and it's black walnut, which is a wonderful wood. So I actually used that. I used firewood. And when I got to where I needed the wood for the body, I used walnut for the lower areas, but above that I used a softer white pine. I met this fellow down here in the front row, John Wickenheiser, and he sold me a lot of this wood you see there. And that's basically what all my statues are made of, about 2 or 3 inch thicknesses glued together, and then I cut into it and sand it, and hopefully it looks real. And I've often thought that the first time I walked into your shop, my whole life would have been different if you didn't have time for me, but you had time for me. You put up with my dumb questions, and you gave me a lot of help, and I've always been grateful. I didn't know what I was doing. I made cardboard cutouts. I laugh at these pictures now. I would never ever do this now. I made plaster molds. I did all kinds of kooky things. I took pictures of myself standing there in the pose. I started laying John's wood out the wrong way. I laid it out pancake style, which I cringe when I look at that now, because that makes it at least twice as hard to carve, because you're always carving end grain. It's much harder than you stand the wood up and you carve the side grain. And I see all the dowel around there, and I remember I overbuilt this thing. If there's a nuclear war, that statue's going to survive. I got up near the head and the hands, and that was kind of a moment where I thought, wow, I don't know if I can do decent head or hands. I had no idea. And that's a difficult process. And I knew that if I couldn't do a good job on that, I couldn't, finish the statue. And then somewhere along the line, it entered my mind that the goal should be that I could sell this thing, that someone will pay me money for this thing. That is complete. I guess because I was going to business school at the time, I decided the goal is to make it saleable. So I'm not sure if I can do it, and I embark on making the head and the hands. Now here's a slide of my Jackie board. To do a head, I don't have a guy standing in front of me. I don't have any 3-dimensional information, and I need to make this look as lifelike as possible. So I'm cutting out books and magazines. I'm going up to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Most people don't know there's a back door and there's a library in the back. You can walk in there, you don't even have to pay. And you ask for a file, and they'll give you the file, and you go through it, and you can have prints made. It's a lot of fun. The room is full of all authors researching their baseball books. But the problem is, look at some of these photos, he's smiling, and some of the photos the light's no good, and some of the photos got a hat on, and some of the photos he's 18 years old and he's skinny, and in some of them he's 55 years old and he's heavier. But you got to take what you can get. The real photos I'm looking for are ones like that one up there, where he's in profile. Profiles are golden, or 3/4 profiles, where his head is turned like that, so I can see the line of the orbital bone. It's very slow. It's very laborious. You just have to go slow and take away the wood that doesn't belong. The thing I tell people is, You do the easy parts first, and the hard parts get easier. And there's also another thing I learned along about that time. When I first started doing this, I told people, I was dumb enough to tell people, I'm going to make a life-size Babe Ruth. And people laughed at me, even people in my own family. And it hurt. And that's when I realized, there's a famous Yankee pitcher, Johnny Sain, he was a pitching coach. And he had a saying, he said, the world doesn't care about labor pains, it only wants to see the baby. And I learned, clam up, do the work, then you have something to talk about. Until you have something to talk about, don't talk. I'm going to switch to a different group of slides here for a second. You guys have seen this loop already. I'll just go through it again. That's how the ad starts out. This is Jackie. I don't have detailed photos of the old time ones. It's 3 pieces of basswood glued up. John, you probably glued that up for me. And we start out and we just rough it out. I just want to figure out where I'm going to put things in the beginning. Once I know where the helmet is, then I'm going to work down and I'm going to determine, the center line, about where the nose and eyes will be. Once you have your nose fixed, that's going to determine where your lips are going to go, your chin, and then eventually the ears are probably going to come along last. But as you go through it, you can't just do a nose and leave everything else. You have to kind of bring the whole thing along at once. It takes a long time. And I might sit there for 10 minutes looking at photographs and then take a little puff of sawdust off the thing, and then I got to go back and look at the photos again. But little by little, you get there. People ask me, why did I do such a serious look? Why is his brow furrowed? Because I looked at 1,000 photos of this guy. He did not like to smile for cameramen. He always typically looked like that. And I'm looking for realism, so that's how I did it. That was generally what he looked for. Looked like. So here, if you'll notice, I don't have a hat brim, okay? I do all my stuff in pieces, and then I glue it up. That's the opposite of maybe Michelangelo. He's going to start with a big block of stone, and he's going to cut into it. My way is a lot easier. I can sit nice and comfortable in a chair and I can flip that piece around and get any tool angle I need on it. And without the brim of the hat, I can get angles up on the forehead. So I make it as easy as possible. I'm sure Michelangelo would have loved that. He had to build a scaffold, he had to crawl all over the thing. He had to stand on his head probably half the time. I do it nice and easy. And if you're gluing the pieces up, why not? There's a fellow in Rhode Island who does this, who, to my knowledge, is the only other guy in the country who does this. And he actually started before I did. His name is Armand Lamontague. And he has the wood glued up before he starts. He has a company glue the entire thing up from basswood. So this is the last series right here. So that started out as that. Yeah, this fellow, he would have literally a block of wood as big as the figure, all glued up, and then he would cut into it just like Michelangelo. And first of all, basswood is very expensive, so I only use the basswood, which is a good carving wood. I only use that where I need detail, the hands and the head. The rest I save money on, and energy, because it's easier to cut softer wood. I use pine for the body, and where I need strength in the ankles, that's where I like to use my walnut. It cuts nice, but it's a very, very strong wood. This fellow who does them out of one block, he's paying a lot of money for this basswood, and most of it's waste, most of it's material. He's just going to cut away. It's expensive, right, John? So that's it. That's the head. Let me go back to the regular top here. And then the hand's the same thing. It's a lot of trial and error. Here's a hand for a statue I never finished. You want to pass that around, people to look at it? This is a piece of basswood. The dark lines are actually a wood burner. When I get down and I want to make real thin lines, you actually burn that wood out with a burner. That was actually going to be for a Jackie Robinson statue maybe 20 years ago, and it fell through. The buyer, I determined that we weren't going to get a deal put together, and I stopped. And that's as far as I had gotten. I think I was going to do the hands first. I'm not sure why. I even did plaster molds. If you have any art students up here that want to, I actually molded my hands in plastic. I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but that's what I did. And that just saved me the time of constantly looking at my hands and picking up the tools. All my techniques I invented just as I went. And here I am, you draw your lines and you start cutting away the wood. And this was the hands I got, my first result, the first Babe Ruth statue, when I didn't know if I could do a head or a hand. I still look at that picture and I'm amazed. Those hands look nice. I didn't know I could do that. It was one of the most amazing things in my life to look at that piece of wood and say, I can't believe I did that. And it happens very slowly. But at the end, you tend to have those moments. So here he is coming together. He's still all wood. That's the basic pose. I wanted a very rigid pose. I wanted something very sturdy. And then I had to think about painting him, and I didn't know anything about painting. So I went down to Pearl Art or Michael's, and I bought acrylic paints and brushes. And I said, let me play around with it. Let me see how it works. So I did. Those are ceiling tiles, the push-up ceiling tiles. I just turned them over and I started painting. I did some baseball pictures. I actually did one in the middle. That's the one I did first. And I was pleasantly surprised. I thought, wow, it's not that hard. I can do it. So again, just by trying it, just by jumping in and saying, let's go, I got good results. This one I actually like. I framed this. That's on a ceiling tile. That's just a Babe Ruth swinging and missing. I love the look on his face. He looks like he's in pain or he's surprised or both. And painting, really anybody can do it. Even these two characters here can paint. That's Thomas and Jack painting an old-fashioned glove for one of my upcoming pieces. They're hard at work. Look at the concentration. Good job, Jack. See, we're actually, this is what we're working on. So we're doing a base coat of brown. And that's actually fun. You do all kinds of work to get to the point where it's sand smooth and it's sealed, and now you can paint it. That is a big payoff. It's a fun thing to paint the statue. But what's not fun is painting pinstripes. To the point where when I did Joe DiMaggio, I did him in a road uniform because the Yankee road uniforms don't have pinstripes. I tried all different systems, freehand. I tried making up a stamp at an office supply store. I did it, I redid it. I eventually came up with a method. I took a piece of masking tape, cut it down the center with a razor blade, and each stripe is taped off on both sides. So this is Babe taped up and painted. Now, when I pull that tape off, you're going to get a bunch of tape with paint on half of it, right? Gallons and gallons of that stuff. And eventually you get stripes that have a little width that look basically like an Indian overspray with a little white, and you get kind of a cloth pinstripe feel. But really, if someone asks me, hey, can you do this layer or that layer, the first thing I think of is, does it have pinstripes on it? Because it's not fun. And then what also you find out is when I make these folds, I'm just making folds that I think look good to the eye, you know? The uniform should bend right about here. I'll draw a line there. I'm not thinking about the width of the garment. When you do parallel stripes, you'll find out when you get to the seams where you were long or short. You understand what I'm saying? Because it doesn't come out even. So you have to hide that on the inseam. And sometimes you actually have to do a couple of tries before you get it to look decent. Because it's not a real garment. In other words, if you could turn that into cloth and unwrap it, it wouldn't be a straight piece of cloth. What else? People always ask me about the bat. Somebody asked me today, hey, do you do the bat? Well, the bat's made of wood, but no, I don't do it. That's the one thing I don't do. It is wood, but I don't do it. Why? I would do the same thing they do down in Louisville Slugger. I would do a piece of ash in the lathe, I would turn it, and I would do just exactly what they do. So what's the point? I order it back from them, I weather it, I put pine tar on it, I burn the branding. The strangest part is when I have to cut into a brand new bat like I'm doing in that slide, because this comes out at both ends, so you can travel. It's a strange sensation to cut through a $100 bat with a saw. But you gotta do it, right? And that was the first Babe Ruth I did. I didn't know if I could do it. People laughed at me. John helped me, and I got to that. I look at the face now and think, oh boy, I could do better on the face. But you know what? It worked. My goal was to sell it, and it sold. This was him getting shipped up and graded out for the auction. And that was tough. You spend how many hundred hours with the thing, and it's like a member of the family. And yeah, I wanted to sell it. Yeah, the money was good, but when that thing walks out the door, you miss it like it's part of the family. This was the auction catalog. It was Robert Edward Auctions. This is the fellow in Hoboken who handled the Barry Halper sale. He's a big shot. And I got to work the auction. I said, hey, do you need help at crunch time? Because it's a phone and fax auction. So at the very end, the last 5 days, it's a frenzy of phone and fax. So he needs guys to man the phones. And he said, yeah, come on. And we did that. right up in the catalog. He did a great job writing it up. He's a good salesman. And I got to work the phones at the auction. So, you know, I started out in my basement, you know, playing with pieces of wood, and I got to go and do all these different things. And this is one of the things that I thought, wow, what a neat thing I got a chance to do. I remember taking a bid on this card. This is was a 52-man rookie card. It's worth all kinds of money. This is 1993 or 4. The guy's bidding $25,000 or $26,000 on this card, and I remember being nervous writing the number down, and I was asking him, "Are you sure?" He said, "Yeah, I'm sure. What are you talking about?" It was just strange, and it was funny because all the auction houses will lend people at crunch time. So I was at a Robert Edward auction, but I was sitting with people from Christie's and Guernseys and Leland's, and they're all telling war stories, and it was very interesting. And I learned also that if you do anything to cross one of these auctioneers, like reneging, which is the mortal sin of the auction business, you bid on something and then you don't pay, all of these people know about it inside of about 30 seconds, and they don't forget. I mean, I heard a guy mention something about someone, oh, yeah, North Carolina, I remember, 15 years ago, he reneged on a blah, 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 blah. So, those guys have every little thing about that industry up in their heads. One funny thing in the auction, we had a Cy Young Award going in the auction, Robert had it. It was the Denny McLean Cy Young Award for, 68, when he won 30 games. Denny McLean fell into hard times, gambling, went to jail. He sold all of his memorabilia for money. His son kept calling the auction to make sure the son was the high bidder. He was going to buy his father's MVP award back and give it to him. And he did. He won the award, and he gave it back to his father, and sentimental guy that his father was, he sold it again. So here I am getting smarter. In the old days, I didn't use the chainsaw. People used to say, "Hey, you use a chainsaw?" And I thought, no, that's what the guys do with the bears outside, big logs, right? I do fine art. I don't do the chainsaw. But what a time saver! What an amazing tool! Electric chainsaw. I can get to within about a half an inch, quarter inch sometimes of where I want to be just with that saw. You have it on, you sweep it back and forth. It's not dangerous if you think right. And that was really my big thing. I just felt like it might have been dangerous. And for the first, I think, 2 or 3 statues, I didn't use it. And I regret that, because that would cut literally 25% of the time out, especially on the first one. The chainsaw is the worst of it. It makes itchy sawdust. It tends to have little hooks. It gets all over. You can ask my wife. It's in my socks. It's in everything. You can see it all over the floor there. That's one of the things about this that I don't think I could communicate it unless you did it. You're covered. You're itchy. It's in your eyes. It's everywhere. There's no getting around it. If you don't like sawdust, you can't do this. Here's my main tools. Once I get down to where I want to get with the chainsaw or get near to it, I start with these big die grinders. These are a lot bigger than the ones my dad was going to use for the bonsais. These are 1/4 inch bits, and you can put all kinds of different bits in there. So I pretty much go from the chainsaw to the die grinders down to maybe sandpaper. I don't think I use the chisel really much anymore at all. But if I did, there they are. That's my go-to chisel. 99% of my chiseling with that one chisel. When I got into it originally, I bought all kinds of chisels and never used them. I only use that one. Here I'm chiseling out. I think that's going to be a forearm, it looks like. And for whatever reason, probably because it would have been awkward to use the chainsaw on that, I chiseled it out. Everything's about time. Whatever's fastest, that's what you're going to do. Here's an example. I think this is Jackie's head. I'm roughing out Jackie's head. And I don't know if you can see it, but down here is an angle grinder. This is my last tool that I picked up. An angle grinder with a chainsaw, a circular chainsaw head. And that thing really removes wood. But that is viciously dangerous. And that's one tool that I'm always nervous when I handle that thing. There's one wrong move and you're going to regret it. But look at the amount of sawdust. That's one session. That's maybe 20 minutes of rubbing out the head. So half the time you're carving, the other half you're cleaning. And you're supposed to wear the ventilator. I probably don't wear it enough. I probably breathe in way too much sawdust. But here I am, nice and comfortable, covered with itchy sawdust. I got the earphones on. I've got the glasses. I got the ventilator. I've since bought a better ventilator. That one's not comfortable. I've got wireless headphones on. You know, you get tired of music. TV is hard to watch because you're doing something over here. I eventually ordered on the internet old radio shows, and the only ones that I really liked was Jack Benny. And when I made this statue, I listened to every Jack Benny radio show from 1933 to 1954. And when you guys look at that, you see Jackie Robinson. When I look at it, I hear the Jack Benny radio show. And I named my son John Benjamin after that. And my wife was in the hospital at one point and looked at me and said, "You named our son Jack Benny, didn't you?" I said, "You just noticed that now?" And this is John again. This is an example of a small piece I did. I think this is my second piece. Eddie Goodell. You know the story of Eddie Goodell, right? 1951. They put him up to bat. He was 3 foot 7 inches. The gag was, for publicity, he was going to walk and then get a pinch runner. And it worked. But the next day, the commissioner ruled that it was illegal for a player under a certain height to play baseball. So, because he was annoyed, he thought Bill Beck was making a mockery of the game. And when I read that, I think, like, that would never fly now. They would take it to court, and that would be discrimination, wouldn't it? Right? But this guy had his day in the sun, and it's something that people remember. People really like this story. So it was an easier statue to do. The guy was smaller. I knocked it right out, and I fell in Garfield and the water. Nice guy. He still has it. And let's see. This is the start of the second Babe Ruth statue I did. There's a little story here. I started this in the 90s. I got this far, and I left it. And for about 10 years, I didn't do any carving at all. I got a couple of different jobs. I changed careers. I went back to school. I got married. All kinds of things happened, and it just carving, wasn't in the mix. But I thought, you know what? I started. I got a pretty good start going. Let me see if I can push this thing along, even though I'm busy. And I got this far on it, and I put this picture on the internet. Let's give you an example of the power of the internet. This crummy picture. I got a call from the director of brands at Gaylord Hotels. He saw this picture on a rinky-dink little blog that has maybe 10 readers a day, and he said, "I want to buy the Babe Ruth statue." And I said, "There's nothing to buy yet. He's not finished." I felt bad. I said, this is great, but let's wait until he's further along before you don't know what you're going to get. I want the guy to be happy with the thing. So it was great. We did a handshake deal for a lot of money. We did an old-timey handshake deal, no paperwork. And the deal was I was going to work on the statue and do the head first. So I did this a strange way. I did this statue with the thought in mind of getting him built up and doing the head. And once he okayed the head, then we felt like we got ourselves a sale. So here I am building him up, roughing him out. See, now I feel a little more confident, and I want to do the Babe Ruth, the corkscrew legs. He swung through the pitch. And here I am just finishing the head. There's Thomas when he was little. And there it is. So you got the whole thing not even done. It was all wood, but the head, I went all the way through and did it all the way through the paint job. I sent him these photos. He said, "Great." We eventually installed this thing at the Gaylord National Hotel in Washington. Now this picture I put in is funny. I'm almost done with it, but something kept bothering me, and I went back and did some work on the sleeve. And if you have Dave told me there'd be some art students here. I don't know if there are. But one thing I learned, if something's bothering you, every time you walk past the statue, you probably goes to the same thing and it's bothering you. John's laughing when he knows what I'm going to say. Fix it. Get it fixed. If it's bothering you, get it fixed. I don't care how late in the process you are. It's always going to bug you. So here I'm actually going back and taking him down to bare wood. I'm really pleased with how the shoes turned out. We got a nice leather look there. And I'm going to try to give you an example of the hotel. The hotel's too big to photograph in one shot. If you look out the window to the Potomac River, that's the Potomac River out there. And if you turn around, you're seeing that view. This is 18 stories high, all under glass. Okay? That's 4 acres of ground under glass down in the front. All right? Now, I want you to can you see right down here, that building? See that little house? That's this building right here. So that'll give you an idea of the scale of this place. This place is beautiful. If you're ever in Washington, you don't have to stay there. Just go have lunch there and look at the atrium. It's phenomenal. So Babe got installed there. We had a lot of fun. I got to take some strange pictures of him because the place was so big, the bird's eye view. Here we are. There was a ceremony. They had a home plate from RFK Stadium brought in. That's the director of brands. That's the fellow who saw that one little picture on the internet and called me up and said, "I want to buy that." I still don't understand that, but it worked out. As a a matter of fact, Jackie would not exist if it weren't for him, because when he was in charge, his vision was he wanted to do 6 of these things. I thought I was in heaven. He wanted to do 6. Roberto Clemente, Josh Gibson, Jackie Robinson, I forget, and 1 or 2 other ones. But he was called away to another project, and the guys who were in charge locally didn't want to know. But because he had gotten me going on it, I had done Jackie. If he hadn't said that, I never would have had the energy to do Jackie. So even though it didn't work out, it did work out for me. Here's a shot of me clowning around with it that ended up on the Washington Post for the opening of the hotel. And media-wise, that was a big thing for me. That was exciting. So he was down there. People take pictures with it all the time. A lot of fun. But on New Year's Eve, he got tackled by a reveler, let's just say. And he's made of wood. He's not bronze. Apparently, a guy literally did a flying tackle, knocked him down. So I had to go down there and patch him back up. Stuff happens. Here's one of my favorites, Joe DiMaggio. This is the one I did with the road uniform, so there would be no pinstripes. And I really, of all the ones I've done, I know the video up there said Jackie was my favorite. This guy was my favorite. I don't know who was talking about that video. And I had a lot of fun with this particular statue. My brother and I had an adventure. They were having Joe DiMaggio Day at Yankee Stadium in 1988. Joe lost all of his World Series rings. Joe had 10 World Series rings. Yogi's the only other one with 10. Joe and Yogi have the most. 10 and 10, not the same 10. But Joe, either in the 89 earthquake or in a theft, DiMaggio lost his rings. So Steinbrenner, nice guy, gonna bring Joe in, gonna present him with replicas of all of his rings they had a day. So I read this in the paper and I said, Ed, you got a truck, let's put the statue on a truck, let's go down there. We didn't have an invite, we didn't have a permit, we didn't have anything. We didn't even have an idea. And long story short, we were about to get arrested for being someplace we shouldn't have been with the statue. They're very uptight around Yankee Stadium. And an off-duty police officer took pity on me and saw the statue and understood what was happening, basically, and that we weren't bad guys, we were just not very smart. And he vouched for us. And I ended up doing, I think, two DiMaggio days and then 2 World Series days, the home World Series games in 1998. Greatest days of my life. We had so much fun. This fella who vouched for me ran this Calliope. That's a vintage World War I era forced air Calliope. Steinbrenner liked to have that play before the games. So right where the smokestack was, the bat, this thing would be going before the games, and we would set up with him. And it was amazing. Ed, you were there. People just loved it. They went gaga, and I was excited. I was convinced that, oh, the Yankees are going to write a check. And I was being told at various points, yeah, the executive so-and-so is going to come down, he'll talk to you, and I'm thinking, great. It never happened. It never happened, but we had a lot of fun. I met Freddie. You guys know about Freddie? He was always out there. I got interviewed by Russ Salzberg, which for me, as nobody from New Jersey, that was exciting. I think Penny Crone, this is for the World Series, all the media was there. Penny Crone interviewed me, and I called all my friends, hey, watch the news tonight, I'm going to be on. Of course I wasn't on, and that's when I learned. Just because they interview you does not mean that you're going to get on the air. I think they had all the celebrities that were at the game, and I didn't make it. But it was fun. It was just fun, any way you slice it. And this scene went on hour after hour, just 3 and 4 deep, people taking pictures. And I was convinced that if a Yankee executive could see the effect that this statue has on people, they would have literally written a check on the spot, but it never happened. Towards game time, one of the nights, because I got friendly with a lot of the guys there who work for the Yankees, towards game time, everybody changed. The guys who worked for the Yankees all tightened up. I said, what's going on? They said, oh, Steinbrenner's around. And they were all looking around to make sure things were picked up. And I've never seen grown men so scared. It was real fear. These guys were scared. I said, no, that's great. Get them over here. No, you don't want that. I said, yeah, they do want that. Get them over here. I want them to see the statue. He didn't show up, but it taught me something. There's a little respect for George in the Yankee family. And then I installed him in Mickey Mantle's restaurant on a random Sunday. Bill Lederman, who owned the restaurant, we called him, okay, bring him in. I think I had my Mickey Mantle statue was there the year before. I said, yeah, let's put Joe in there. He said, okay. We delivered him on Sunday, and on Monday morning I hear on the radio he passed away. And I was happy about it, but I thought it's kind of a break for me because his didn't even see that in the paper. I got it in the Post. That's the Mickey Mouse statue. And that was funny because I was going through the Post one day. But I said, ooh, I know what that is. I spent 500 hours with that. So that was exciting. One more Joe DiMaggio story. I used to do baseball card shows just to get the statue out in front of people, to collect business cards, get ideas, you know. That was my idea of marketing at that time. So I did a show at the Meadowlands Hilton or the Meadowlands Sheraton, I forget which, and DiMaggio was the anchor man. He was going to sit there and sign autographs for, I think it was 4 hours he signed autographs. So here we are. I don't know if you can see my laser pointer blue, it wasn't showing. See this exit sign right here? Just down the wall, about 10 feet, is Joe DiMaggio seated at a table, and you know, people are paying their money and lining up and getting things signed. And I thought, oh, this is great. He's a cinch to walk over here and see the statue of himself. You know, who wouldn't go see a statue of himself? And I mean, you can see it's about 75 feet at the most. He doesn't show. All day people are telling me, oh, I just told Joe about the statue. I told him to come see it. So people are going over to him and telling him. And then people were telling me, hey, you should go over there. How dare he not come over here? I said, I'm not coming. I'm not going to beg him. And I'm glad, to this day, I'm glad I didn't do that. If he wants to come, fine. I'm not going to beg him. But she did. That was my girlfriend at the time. At the very end, she was so irate that he wouldn't come over. She got in his way when he tried to leave to make one more plea. And he literally picked her up, moved her out of the way, and went out that exit door into his car. She came back all excited. Joe DiMaggio picked me up. She said, he's really strong for an old guy. But he didn't come over, and I thought about it. And, you know, it was disappointing. I'm not going to tell you it wasn't, but I understand it. I don't think people understand how famous this guy was and for how long. He was as famous as Sinatra or the Beatles for 60 years. He can't go get the papers. He can't go to the movies. He can't go to the mall or a restaurant. I was at the baseball writers' dinner in 1987, I think it was. We had the worst table at the back by the kitchen. And DiMaggio walked right out of the kitchen past our table. He was not on the dais. He just was in town and he thought he would show up. And by the time he got about 2 tables away from us, grown men just lost their minds. Got out, ran over to him, smacking him on the back, flashbulbs in his face, menus are shoved under him. Hey, Joe, sign this. I turned to the guy next to me and I said, they're going to kill him. Literally, they're going to beat this man down right in front of us. So I had that in the back of my mind. That was a few years before this. That's the kind of fame I don't think you want, you know. So I mean, he's seen it all. Everybody that he runs into wants a piece of him. And as hard as that is for us to understand that a guy wouldn't want to see a statue of himself, he didn't want to see it. So, and I think I even approached his attorney. I sent a letter. I said, I'll pay whatever the going rate is. I'll deliver it to his hotel. He can sign it or whatever. I was turned down politely, and that's fine. And you know, these card guys at these shows, they were so focused on the memorabilia and the autographs. I had so many people telling me, oh, the statue would be worth so much more if Joe signed it. And I said, really? Doesn't it stand on its own merits? Do you need the little Sharpie signature on it? But they all seem to think that was great. But it never happened. Couple more slides. This is how Jackie was made. I think you guys saw this on the movie. Starting with my typical technique, shoes first, and then legs, and then above the legs we do the pine. And you have some blocks glued up there. Always do them in pieces. I got to be able to fit them out the door where I'm working, so you actually have to put some thought into that. And the 2 pieces makes it easy to, like, it comes apart. I don't know if you don't realize that. Get them in and out of a normal car. I was a dummy. The first one I made, I did 1 piece, and I had to rent the truck every time I needed to go do something. And there were a lot of little events I couldn't do because it didn't pay. Here I am later on trying to get the arms on. And believe it or not, one of the hardest things to do, harder than a head sometimes or even hands, is elbows. The upper arm and the elbows, making that look natural. I don't know why, but that is not easy. Maybe because you can't see your own elbow. I don't know. Here he is getting painted up. Here we are down at Philly. We did the last 3 Jackie Robinson days at Philadelphia Citizens Bank Park. Every April 15th, every home Major League team who's home that day has a Jackie Robinson Festival. All the players wear number 42, which I think is a really nice tribute that they can do. And the Phillies are great to me. They have me down there every year. I'm going back in June when the Mets are in town in Philly for African American Heritage Night. I have a nice relationship with the Phillies. Somebody said, what about the Mets? I have no relationship with the Mets. They will not return an email. They will not return lot of little side things, not just the Jackie Robinson thing. We went over to where the Philadelphia Stars, the old Negro League team in Philly used to play, and this is the Jimmy Rollins Foundation. He has the kids, they get t-shirts. Cute kids, we had a lot of fun. Dance troupe, these guys were Cracker Jacks. They did a routine for us, and here we are at Philly. Same story, people lining up for photos all day long, yet no one ever comes from the front office with a checkbook. Citizens Bank Park 2, if you haven't been there, it's not that far away. That is a beautiful stadium. And this was the first Jackie Robinson Day we did. My nephew and I drove down to Washington for the Nationals. This was like 2009, 2010. And they were going to staff the thing up and have a security guard, and we could go enjoy the game. And I just drove 5 hours, and my nephew was 9. He wanted to see the game, so we went to see the game. And we got a call, and somebody had, again, tackled him. I don't know what it is about my statues. People like to play football with them. So Jackie was in bad shape, but you can't tell now, right? He's all right? And I put a few slides in here because all these new ballparks, I've been to 39 major league ballparks, and they all have these bronze statues, you know? You gotta have bronze because it has to hold up the weather and it has to hold up the people. My stuff, if it was permanently on display, would have to pretty much be in plexiglass so people would touch it or tackle it or what have you. But these guys in Washington are the only place, this is the only place I've seen where they try to do motion with the statue. And I don't know, you can judge for yourself. I don't know if it's my cup of tea. And they tried, I'll give them an A for effort. I don't know that I would want to do that. To me, when you want to do motion, you get a photo that looks good and you try to capture it. And if you do a good job, it looks like motion without all the extra stuff. So, like I said, that one's my baby, that one. And a lot of other little adventures along the way. I remember we were at Meadowland Sheraton for a show, and the original Mr. Met was there. Nice guy. The Mets had Mr. Met for the first 10 or 15 years, and then they got rid of him. And they decided to bring him back in the late 80s, early 90s, mid-90s. And this guy was the original guy, and he was irate that they were hiring a new guy and having a new head made. He thought he should be the one. So he took it upon himself to go to the shows and I guess drum up publicity for the original Mr. Met. And I remember it was odd talking to him through the mouth, the little mesh of the mouth, and hearing his voice echo in the paper mache ball, but he was very serious about it. And Dave and I were very serious there. I'm not too sure what happened that day. We did a lot of stuff for the Boy Scouts. This is, I used to do every year the Passaic Valley Boy Scouts, meet the Yankees, and the kids are there. This is one of my most recent ones, a small piece. With the kids now, I don't have enough time a lot of times to do the big stuff. This is supposed to be Kurt Schilling's Bloody Sock. I know you guys are probably Yankee fans, you want to forget that. But he did a lot of ALS charity work, especially in the World Series when he did the cameras would be on his Bloody Sock. He wrote on his shoe, KALS, meaning strikeout ALS. So I did this piece, and this is going to be donated to the ALS Foundation. And I left a big piece of wood sticking out of the top of it because of all the times I've had people ask me, well, what's it made of? Or how did you get the uniform on? I said, you know what, let me do one where I just stick it in their face. It's wood. That was an interesting thing. Just had a little fun with it. And that's the catalog that my DiMaggio statue went in. That was a Leland's auction. And I remember when I worked the auction, a lot of war stories about Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen was very active buying memorabilia. And all the auctioneers had stories about him calling up from some desert island at 3 in the morning and placing outrageous bids on everything. But I guess he fell on hard times because he sold it all, I believe, in the Charlie Sheen auction. Not sure how he's doing now. Tiger Blood or whatever it is. Did some fun things over here, Hofstra University. That was more of an academic conference, but it was fun to go out there. Bisco Gallery. My brother worked for the Bisco, and we went down there. Last but not least, paintings. I get a lot of questions about my paintings. Do you paint? I got a couple of paintings that I do. I'm not too good at it. When I throw them in, that's the Aquitania. My uncle went to World War II in that ship. This is my black and white phase. My dots phase. Pointillism was at Seurat. And this one took me, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours. It was one of those magical nights where you sit down with a little idea and it all works. And just a painting. It's about this big. I've gotten more compliments and inquiries on this reason, people love this. I'm not even sure why. It's a silent film, movie star. I did a little black and white, a little color around the edges. I like it. But it's just funny. It just shows you art is subjective, and people see different things. And after all the time on a statue, you get more out of that. That's it for the slideshow. I've covered most of the things people like to talk about. I'll answer questions. I'll hang around if you guys want to talk.
If this took $900 in wood, would bronze be more or less?
Bronze, here's the thing, and maybe I didn't mention it, I'm completely self-taught, so I really don't know a lot of the traditional art techniques. I did research on the web as to what it would cost to get a bronze statue, because I wanted to know what I'm asking for versus what they would pay. And to do a full, you gotta do the original, and you gotta have a foundry do it, and that's real expensive. The foundry is I think, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. I'm seeing your moment. The question was,
Would it take more time to do bronze than wood, or?
I honestly can't answer that because I don't even know how they work. I don't know what the guy does to make the original positive, which they then go make a negative of to pour the bronze in. You know what? I'll Google it tonight and take a look.
Are you working on anything now?
I'm working on one now that is going to be controversial. I actually don't even want to show pictures of what it's going to look like. It has to do with the steroid era, let's just say. I might have a phone call from Mr. Clemens.
Can you approach your post space the whole thing?
You know what? Ted Spencer used to be the curator there. I sent him a letter a long time ago, and he said, we're limited with our display space. And, he was nice, but he said no thanks. And one of the reasons is they have two of the statues by Armand Lamont. He's the other guy who does this, and quite frankly, he's better than me. Those statues are dynamite. Ted Williams and Dave Ruth. As soon as you go up, I think they're right in the front. So, knowing that and getting the rejection, I stopped inquiring. I mean, you know what? I get lazy with marketing. I should probably just, from time to time, check in with them. Even for a limited engagement, hey, a couple of weeks. Right. And I'm not persistent. I put all my energy into the statue. When I'm done, I'm tired, and I don't really want to know about the marketing. Mike is probably disappointed. He's the marketing genius. It's not my wheelhouse. And even doing something like this today, this is marketing, and I'm trying to get cranked up and do more things like this and just get it out in front of people, especially now with the movie. And it's funny, I've done the Philadelphia visit 3 times now, but this last year, the movie was out, and I heard a lot of people saying, oh, he did Fat Jackie, he did Heavy Jackie. I said, what's that? I never heard of that. And what that is the actor playing Jackie in the movie has got a thin face, and the real Robinson he actually had a weight problem for a couple years of his career. But it's funny how people's perceptions can be changed. So now everybody's idea of Jackie is that actor in that movie, and maybe not the real guy. I mean, I looked at 1,000 photos. I mean, I really wanted it right. In fact, Jackie had such a weight problem. After he broke in 47, he was feted and did all the rubber chicken circuit, 47 to 48, because he was such a celebrity at that point, and he came in overweight. And Leo DeRocher, the manager of the Dodgers, put him in a full scuba suit on a hot day and hit fungos at him. And I'm thinking, my goodness, if the guy did that today, he would go to jail, Talk about, even though he was accepted, he still had things like that going on. I'm not good at the marketing. I really need to redouble my efforts. Take a card, spread the word.
Right, there's the old axiom, measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure you probably had a couple of instances where you maybe cut too much.
You know what?
How do you fix that?
Yes, but not many. Because what happens is, I can fix anything. Michelangelo makes a mistake in pure marble. He's got to redesign a piece around the mistake. He's got no choice. Everything's screwed up. So I could theoretically make a horrendous mistake and fix it. But fixing it takes a lot of time, and that is just, everything I do is related to time. It kills you to spend too much time on something. So you end up being careful where you need to be careful because you just don't want to make that mistake. In fact, sometimes you're so careful you're paralyzed that you don't take any wood off. And sometimes you need to just say, all right, I Who should I do next? That's what I always ask people. Elvis? Nixon? Because it doesn't have to be baseball.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
I think you should do Muhammad Ali.
Ali. Now, you know what? It would be very difficult. Wouldn't be in stripes. Because you would just do trunks.
Yeah.
You would do all musculature. And anytime you got to do skin, you got to be within a millimeter where you belong.
Derek Jeter.
Jeter would be probably high up on the list. He would be very popular.
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson. I've heard that. I've actually heard a few of them.
Yeah, Michael is my mom because one of my siblings can be driving.
Yeah.
There's a new movie coming out, maybe a little tiny movie.
Composer?
Is composer by, some movie, as long as it's all.
I want to do myself, I want to do the Dead Bowl era picture, Three-Finger Brown. Because what I do shows more than a photograph, it shows what a person really was. And this fellow Brown, look him up. He won the World Series, the last Cubs World Series in 1980. He had his hand mangled in a farm implement. And he was a tremendous pitcher, missing 2 fingers and having another finger, bent at a right angle. So I thought, what a nice story for people with a disability. This guy had a disability on his pitching hand, and yet is in the Hall of Fame. And I like doing the old timers because there's a little more wiggle room on the likeness. You're not going to have a relative coming up saying, hey, he doesn't look like that. You know, if I do Jeter, boy, I better get it right, or people are gonna,
Do any of these people buy for their own homes?
I've had a lot of inquiries, but when I give them the price, because when you figure how much time is in there, I've got to get a certain amount of money, or it's just not worth it. When they hear that figure, they almost always blanch, and then the next comment out of their mouth is they want to shrink it down. And I say, well, if you shrink it down, I still have to do the face and the hands, and now it's smaller. So I'm really not going to save much time. So I would still have to charge you a fair amount, and it usually falls apart at that.
What's that fair amount? Close to.
Say,
Fair amount.
the Gaylord gave me $20,000 for the second vapor. So that's fair for me, and I would probably take less, economy being what it is, space concerns, do I need the space, whatever. Right now I like him because I like doing the events in Philly. I love that, take my kids down there.
That's not an outrageous amount for.
For the amount of work, no.
No, even for the result, even if it was less work, it's not that's actually less than I thought.
Thank you, I think so.
No, seriously,
Yeah, I thought too, it was like 3 times that. Obviously, you do allow it to statue, somebody offered to buy it now, so.
Let's talk.
Did you make another one so you could go to the show?
Well, it's funny, interesting. The logos and all of that, legally, I called the commissioner's office in the early 90s and said, what's the legality of this? And they said, you do one of a kind, it's art. It's free speech in the Constitution. It's protected by the First Amendment. You can do Yankee logos, Babe Ruth's face, it doesn't matter. If you make a copy, now you're into licensing and you need to talk to us. So if I were to do one, I got 2 considerations. I'm kind of warranting to the buyer of the first one that I'm not going to turn around and make 4 more and kind of undercut him. So I would have to do maybe a different pose, and I have to be careful with licensing that I'm not doing too close to the same thing, or maybe they knock on my door. But it's funny, Major League Baseball has changed since I called Peter Uberoff's office in the early 90s, and this guy was going to go to the Citi Field live auction for the All-Star game this year. I had a discussion with the auction house, and they said, we need your licensing. And I said, I'm not licensed, and here's why. And I told that story. And they said, well, we'll get back